Okay, now that we have established that the soul is female and that the spirit is male and that the spirit has gained predominance over the affairs of man, let's look a little more into that issue of what it means that the soul has gained predominance over the spirit in the affairs of man. And for that we have to go back to the book of Genesis, and let's look at the words that the Lord spoke to Adam after the fall, when he confronted him in the garden and pronounced a curse upon him, which represents a curse upon all humanity. And that is found in Genesis chapter 3, and let's go to verse 17. It says, "And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return." So notice that the main indictment that God has against Adam is not so much that that he did something criminal or something illegal. It was basically that he listened to the voice of his wife. That was the first thing that God said against Adam. "And have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you." So in other words, man was designed to be a covering for his wife, but instead of the woman submitting to man, man ended up submitting to woman. And if you think about it, it seems a bit drastic if you look at it from the soul's perspective, from the natural human perspective, that all the hell, and I mean that in a figurative sense, that humanity has gone through ever since the fall, all the wars, all the pestilence, all the famines, all the natural tragedies, and all this stealing and evil that has gone on for so many centuries, for so many millennia, that all of that happened because one day one person decided to eat of a tree because he chose to listen to the advice of another person. That's basically it. A guy taking a fruit from a tree because the woman told him to do so, and that was what got us into this whole mess. And that explains a fact that what is sin to God, what is tragic or dramatic to God, may not seem dramatic to the human natural mind. To most people, that action did not merit all the disaster and all the curse that has been placed on humanity ever since. But to God it was important, because at that moment the spirit of man became submitted to the soul of man, and it began to operate under different principles, under a different value system, under a different judgment system, that the system that God intended for man. When Adam was there, he had two options. He either listened to the woman that was standing in front of him, or he would listen to the voice of the spirit, and he chose to take the spirit and submit it under the soul, and that's when sin entered into the world. So we can conclude that sin, in essence, is when the soul is in control and the spirit is relegated to the background. That is the essence of sin, and that explains why God has created hell for people that many would argue are not deserving of hell. Many of you as believers have probably encountered non-believers who who may ask, I mean, why would God be so nasty as to create this hell where people are going to burn forever and ever if they were not criminals, they were not, say, Nazis, or they were not Hitler, they did not commit genocides, or steal millions of dollars, or commit other heinous crimes, and they are still being sent to suffer for eternity. Why would God do such a thing? But the reason is that what angers God is when the soul starts making decisions without being submitted to the Spirit. Because when the soul is the one judging, when the soul is the one who decides what's good and what's bad, it starts doing things that are completely contrary to the high calling of man, who is a spirit being at heart. So that's why, for example, many people are very generous with their money. For example, they might be sitting somewhere in the park, and a person might come and ask them for money, and they will probably be feel compelled to give that person some money, and after that they will feel good about it. But most of the time, the person who is doing that is not thinking, am I really blessing this person by giving him or her this money? They provide this act of kindness without consulting the Spirit, and in doing so they might be funding unrighteousness in the other person and prolonging the state of unrighteousness in that person's life. Because by funding their behavior, you might be preventing the set of circumstances that will lead to that person coming to true repentance and changing. When the prodigal son went out of the house, as you may know, he went out and spent all his money, and his father did not go after him. His father loved him dearly, as we all know, but he didn't go and look for him and send messengers to find out if he was okay or how he was doing. He just let him go. And it seems as if the father was, in a sense, as he was praying for the restoration of his son, he was, shall we say, praying for judgments upon his life. And that's why when he ran out of all the money that he had gotten from the inheritance, it turns out that in that country there was a sudden famine. Coincidentally, as he ran out of money, so he had no other options to go to. He couldn't go get a decent job or anything. It was like the judgment was chasing after him. He was under a curse, and when the money ran out on him, then the curse caught up to him, and he was, as we all know, forced to look after pigs, and he even desired the food that he saw the pigs eating, if you can call it food. So and that's when he came to the realization that he had to change, and that's when he went back to the house of the father, and that's when the father ran out to receive him, and because he had come a different man, a restored man. Had the father been led by the soul to provide for his son in the middle of his unrighteousness, and to look after him, the son would have said, well, Daddy takes care of me, so I'm going to continue with this lifestyle, and he would have never been regenerated, or if he had been regenerated, it would have been too late to do anything about it, to do anything with his life. So sometimes the soul does things that look good, that seem right, that seem generous, kind, but they are destructive at the end.